these legacy broadcasters have a track record of getting stories wrong or just straight up lying about other people. However, I believe the true motive behind this is something quite simple. Money. That's right, money. Good old-fashioned corporate greed. Let me explain.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking, the hot pot, cooking, fucking on your bitch, yeah, that, cooking up dope in the crock pot.
What's going on, guys? It's CrimsonCage here, and welcome back to another video. Now, today's video is about the UK government. This is not the type of video I normally make on this channel, as I don't think I've ever made a video about the government before, but in all honesty, a video on the government is long since overdue, because to put it bluntly, this government is not great. Dare I say it, it's downright terrible. There's a plethora of reasons why I say this, from increasing taxes on working class people, despite promising not to do that, to increasing our energy bills after promising to freeze them for the rest of the year, to restricting winter fuel payments to only those on pension credit or means tested benefits, essentially cutting off around 9.3 million pensioners, to the national insurance increases that increase taxes on businesses, causing them to conduct mass layoffs on staff, and even worse, close businesses down, and much more. But now the government is trying to go full authoritarian mode, because the changes that the government are talking about implementing onto YouTube is quite frankly pretty scary, and every single YouTuber, especially in the UK, needs to speak out against this. So for context, YouTube put out a statement to all content creators warning all of us about the government's plan to create a mandate in which YouTube would be forced to effectively de-rank all of the videos of independent UK content creators to prop up the channels of UK media corporations, ITV, BBC and Channel 4, and also I think Channel 5 as well. Now, why are they doing this? These corporations argue that despite their trusted journalism, social media platform algorithms favor creator content, entertainment or overseas publishers over them. That's right, how dare YouTube prioritize all content creators over our media corporations? How dare they not allow media companies to shove their propaganda down our throats, thus burying independent content creators in the process? This is a level of authoritarianism that I never thought I'd ever witness from a UK government. YouTube put out a statement on their website highlighting the consequences of implementing these rules in the UK. It reads as follows: the proposed new rules include a mandatory prominence regime. This could require digital platforms like YouTube to prioritize and give a privileged position to traditional broadcasters like ITV, BBC and Channel 4 in user interfaces and recommendation feeds, potentially pushing your content out of sight. So in other words, if your subscribers end up not seeing your videos on their YouTube feed, it's because this government has essentially blacklisted your videos in favor of their videos, because they only want their videos to be seen to, quote, combat misinformation. You do not need to essentially take over an algorithm and suppress it and its creators to counter misinformation, hence why you've got independent content creators that do their due diligence to inform viewers on issues that currently exist in the world. Now look, it continues with the following: mandating prominence to traditional institutions will impact all other independent digital creators, production companies and media COS, including through your content getting downranked. Pushing this group forward means pushing everybody else downward. Mandatory prioritization of broadcasters would affect how your content reaches your audience, regardless of what your audience actually wants to see. Reducing user exposure to diverse content and independent content creators. Mandating prominence for established media networks would push the UK's diverse mix of independent journalists, educators and digital first businesses down the line. Threat to reach and channel growth. Your ability to organically grow your community, generate views and revenue and build a sustainable business is compromised if your content is hard to be discovered. So while this impacts all content creators, this will obviously hit the small content creators the hardest, because effectively this will make it damn near impossible for their videos to be seen, thus making it nearly impossible to establish and sustain growth on their YouTube channels, and all because a dictatorial government wants to have complete control over what its citizens watch on the internet, undermining the creator-audience bond. The consultation repeatedly emphasizes trust in the legacy broadcasters, implying that digital-first voices are less credible, damaging the foundational trust that sustains the creator economy. In other words, These legacy media companies think that they are more trustworthy than content creators. Now, in all honesty, I call bullshit on that, especially considering the fact that in 2012, the BBC paid out a settlement of £185,000 to Conservative peer Lord McAlpine, I think I've butchered his name, but moving on, after falsely implicating him in the sexual abuse of children.
What?
Which is rather ironic considering they have employed people who have been convicted in a court of law for committing similar crimes. This was also the same corporation that was caught misleadingly editing Donald Trump's January 6th speech about the Capitol riot by splicing clips together to imply that Trump was making a direct call to violence when in reality he didn't. And don't think Channel 4 is that much better, because in 2017 they got caught spreading misinformation by naming the wrong man as the Westminster terror attacker. Oh, but they're supposed to be the beacon of truth. So tell me, how are these legacy broadcasters any more credible than these digital first voices? Me personally, they're not more credible at all. This is why nobody trusts legacy media, because they lie through their teeth constantly and shove propaganda down the throats of everybody that watches them. So many Twitter users and content creators, big and small, spoke out against this, saying that this is just outright dystopian. You even had UK politicians speak out against this. One of this is Nigel Farage himself, who described it as appalling state censorship. Now look, I've said that after banning social media for under 16-year-olds, the government was going to go much further to essentially control how people use social media. It wasn't enough that they banned social media entirely for under 16-year-olds. Now they're thinking about taking over the YouTube algorithm itself. Now look guys, I'll be honest with you. I think all of this is a smokescreen for what the true motive of this whole consultation is. For those who don't know, a smokescreen is a deliberate action, statement, or distraction designed to conceal the truth, divert attention from real problems, or hide someone's true intentions. Now pay attention to the last part of that definition. Hide someone's true intentions. This consultation is driven under the guise of combating misinformation, even though these legacy broadcasters have a track record of getting stories wrong or just straight up lying about other people. However, I believe the true motive behind this is something quite simple. Money. That's right, money. Good old-fashioned corporate greed. Let me explain. In their open consultation page titled Watch This Space, which is where they make their case for this, they admit that people are watching more content on third-party platforms such as social media or video sharing platforms like YouTube, of course, rather than broadcasters' own channels or video on-demand services. They simply can't compete with social media and video sharing platforms like YouTube. Now this points to one simple conclusion. Legacy media is dying, and it's been dying for the better part of a decade, and we already know this. We already know that more people are switching over to YouTube than watching channels like the BBC and ITV, probably because the people of Britain are tired of being controlled and manipulated by the media to save the asses of those in power. Now look, the BBC is facing funding difficulties, partly because less and less households are buying a TV license as people are moving away from watching live TV, and it's part of the reason why their BBC license fee income fell by over 30% in real terms over the last decade. I wonder why that is. Maybe it's the fact that the BBC likes to shove their TV license fees down the throats of just about everybody else, especially those who don't actually need them, and maybe it's because they're generally just a bunch of fucking liars, as I've already established, especially with the BBC, with the way they try and force people into buying a TV license through lies and harassment, because they'll always say that if you watch YouTube, for example, you need to buy a TV license. This is not true. You only need to buy a TV license if you watch live TV or if you watch BBC iPlayer. I 100% believe they're trying to use YouTube to force people to buy more TV licenses to recuperate the losses they've made over the previous decade. These companies are losing money because a lot of people are just ditching legacy media in favor of platforms like YouTube, and as a result, they are desperately trying to find ways to pry money out of the audiences. I could be wrong about the real reason as to their motivation for doing this, but in all honesty, I suspect that I'm not wrong at all. I cannot begin to articulate how much of a dangerous precedent this is going to set going forward, because if this gets passed into law, then there's really no limit as to how much more authoritarian governments will become. If the UK UK can do this, what's stopping any other country from following suit? This isn't even about left versus right. This is about people versus government, like it always has been. If you think this stops with YouTube, they'll do it to TikTok, they'll do it to Instagram, and they'll do it to Facebook. Better yet, they'll do it to any other social media platform it wants to do this to. Everybody needs to speak out against this. Content creators, viewers, even if you don't watch YouTube, you also need to speak out against this. Because like I said, this will set a dangerous precedent going forward. If they can enact this law, they will enact any law they want. But anyway, it's been CrimsonCage, and keep YouTube yours.